Right, we're going to get into the next session now. What a cracker it is. If you're a racing driver, if you're anybody involved in motorsport, you have to listen to this session. This is Jess Shanahan, the racing mentor, and Toby Trice. I'm going to bring them in now. We're going to dip out and enjoy the session.
Hey, thanks guys. I'm Jess Shanahan. I am the racing mentor. A lot of you might know me because in 2018, I wrote the book, Get Paid to Race. And, ever since then, I've been working with drivers to kind of give them the tools and knowledge to get sponsorship. And I'm here with Toby Trice. So Toby, for those listening who don't know you, could you give a quick introduction?
Yeah, hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Toby Trice, a racing driver on a campaign to raise awareness for male fertility. I became a racing driver in my late 20s, all thanks to Jess and her book, Get Paid to Race. I met Jess a couple of years ago now after picking up a copy of her book when she launched it, and then met her sort of into the January of 2018, I think it was now, Jess. And I've never looked back. I've become a racing driver and living the absolute dream, and also returning so much awesome things for my partners, and hopefully grow in the future.
Amazing. And Toby and I do a podcast called the Racing Mentor Sponsorship Podcast. We've been doing it since earlier this year. It was a great kind of lockdown project for us. And, during that, we go through everything kind of related to sponsorship and making money to go racing. So this is kind of gonna run a lot like that podcast, I guess, Toby. And I'm basically gonna kind of ask you to run through your career and the things that you've learned so far, because you really are kind of still at the beginning of your racing career, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a whirlwind. I've done one season in the Ginetta Racing Drivers Club back in 2019, after following all your support and advice and education, and it's just been an absolute whirlwind since. But I started karting probably 4 years ago now. Done a couple of years at Buckmore Park, just kind of learning the ropes and just using motorsport as a bit of fun, really. Just kind of getting into it. Never imagined ever would I become a racing driver that was sponsored. I've come from someone that's got no money to take into the sport, so I knew that I needed to get sponsorship to make this happen. And I used to believe that it was very much a sticker on a race car, and get paid to do that. Whereas now I've got a very different outlook on how sponsorship works, and it's very much a partnership with my sponsors and how I can actually promote and help their business grow, so that we can all grow together and enjoy this amazing sport.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you've really developed over kind of the last year or so is your niche. And I think this is something that a lot of drivers miss out on because they're doing the same things as everyone else. They don't have this niche that's outside of motorsport. So when they do pitch to sponsors, they don't stand out. They just look like everyone else. So can you kind of talk people through like how you came to develop your niche and how that's working for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I started racing at Buckmore Park as an escape to my fertility journey. I've got a very interesting personal story of going through fertility treatment, found it very, very tough, but used motorsport as a positive escape for me to kind of embrace that and enjoy something different, take my mind off it. And I decided to take that into motorsport with a really unique story that I wanted to inspire others that are potentially going through fertility treatment, but also as an opportunity to raise awareness to the entire world, with regards to, as a racing driver, how I can influence people to live their lives, even if they're struggling with their own issues. It might not necessarily be fertility. So I've kind of developed, I suppose, that niche myself with regards to your help, Jess. And I can't believe just how much things are snowballing now. And I'm in the media a lot. As much as being a racing driver is great for winning and getting championships and all that kind of stuff, sponsors don't really care about that. You need to be able to give a return to sponsors, and I've got some fantastic partners now that are on part of this journey with me, and I'm doing some great things to help those guys out.
And people are really starting to kind of take notice of this. Like, people are hearing about you because of this awareness that you're raising for male fertility issues. But that's obviously bringing awareness to your racing as well, and to those partners. And I know that, earlier this year, you really kind of made a point to really focus on your branding and get like this really kind of high end look. What was like the thought process behind all of that?
Yeah, I mean, COVID kind of forced this to happen. At the beginning of the year, you and I obviously was talking about where I was going to go and how I was going to make this work for 2020. And unfortunately, the COVID situation, kind of put a block on that. But I wanted to make something that was perhaps negative in the world into something really positive for my business and for my partners. And it was a good opportunity for us to take a step away from motorsport as a competitor this year, because I knew I couldn't have guests at the track, and it was going to cause some issues with regards to having people with us. And that's partly where, you know, I enjoy that part. So I really decided to focus really hard on my branding, so that I could approach 2021 with a really fresh new look really slick and professional, and that we've got this really unique opportunity now for new and current partners of what we can really offer to them. And a huge thank you to Purple Tash, Momentum Social and 9line, because they've allowed me to really establish my brand. And yeah, I think it's definitely turning heads. People are starting to take note, and it's really cool. We've done exactly what we've planned to do.
That's great. And I feel like a strong brand is so important, and it goes really alongside having this niche and standing out. And I actually think there are a lot of drivers out there who aren't doing this. And I feel like so many people, they see what others are doing and they kind of copy it. So a lot of drivers come across the same. And, you know, I'm curious kind of what you were thinking when you kind of went into developing your brand to make it really strong and high end, and how you were thinking about how that related to, you know, looking for sponsors in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've got a very hard work ethic, and I quite like minimal, clean, very slick looking things. And I want to attract companies of a similar kind of image, so that we're kind of collaborate together with the same personal message that we want to put out to the world. And I think if I can align my brand with my ideal partners for the future, then we're only developing and building a better relationship for that future itself, Jess. And, you know, it's so thankful to you, because I've managed to really understand just how I can develop this into something. And fortunately for me, because I've spent that time working on my brand and my niche and actually really putting that message quite clear out to the world, I remember you saying to me quite some time ago that eventually sponsors will come to you, because they'll understand what you want, what, you know, how you can help them. And literally within the first, you know, couple of weeks, I got some good messages, and those relationships have built across now to partnerships that are going to be happening in 2021. So I'm so excited, because, you know, I'm now attracting the kind of, I guess, success that I deserve, that I've put in. But at the same time, I now know that I can help those companies, because we completely align, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as much as I love talking about, you know, the pitch process and the hustle and the hard work that goes into securing sponsorship as a driver, I think that everyone should aim to build something so appealing that businesses start to come to you. I think that's the perfect way to do things, because you can work on what is essentially the fun stuff, like social media, video content, your newsletter, stuff like that. And people, like, they stand up and they pay attention to you then. And just by kind of showcasing what you're doing with current partners, it's really appealing to those businesses who are then getting in touch with you.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and I know I can help them companies, right? So yeah, it's so exciting. I'm looking forward to the future and many years yet left of racing, let's hope.
Absolutely. So one thing that I always get asked a lot on the Racing Mentor Facebook community and over on Instagram and other channels is, how do you find the right sponsors to approach? So, you know, people approaching you aside, that's obviously the dream. But when you're going out and thinking, right, I need to go and secure some sponsorship, how do you identify the right companies?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Jess, actually. I think, you know, many drivers do actually just look at, okay, who's spending money in motorsport? How can I get their money, etc., etc. And they look at big companies and, you know, just almost, you know, just cast a net across and just hope that people are going to eventually come to them. But the way I kind of search and look for sponsors is that I do a lot of research with regards to the kind of companies I want to work with, the ones that I know I can help, and I research their goals and make sure that I really understand that business. There's a long process in terms of when I'm sort of researching sponsors and how I find them. And there are companies that I've seen before that I think could be a great sponsor, and I've delved into them a little bit more and actually realized that perhaps they wouldn't be a good partnership with myself, based on my niche and my brand. So I really focus the time on research, so that I understand that business, I understand where they want to go, and I understand that I'm involved with their niche. And the conversation is much easier then to talk about a partnership and actually how you can help them, rather than just going, hey, can you sponsor me because I'm a racing driver?
And that's exactly what it comes down to, isn't it? It's about offering that value to these businesses. So it's not just a sponsorship. They're not supporting you just because you're doing great things. They want to know that they're going to get something out of a partnership at the end of it. It's going to affect their bottom line or, increase brand awareness in some way. So let's talk about researching sponsors and how you find out what their goals are, because I feel like once you know what a business is trying to do, it's so much easier to tell them how you're going to provide value to them. So what's your kind of process of doing that research, Toby?
Yeah, so I look across, Google's amazing, for sure. There's so much you can find on Google. You can look on, news reports and social media posts and things like that. LinkedIn's fantastic now these days because a lot of companies are really promoting themselves through there, and obviously the people that work for those companies and the decision makers are also quite sort of self-promoting. So quite quickly you can find out and establish what particular goals are with that business. And then I just jot it all down and just sort of, create a spreadsheet and just jot it all down and understand that information. And then I start reaching out if I feel that that's quite a good potential partner for me, that I know that I can help that particular company. I then just say, hey, how are you? And just kind of introduce myself, get talking without the agenda of actual sponsorship, more just to understand and be really interested in what that company's doing. And then the conversation just goes from there, really, Jess. I mean, it's quite an organic thing, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a step that so many people miss out. They find someone that they want to pitch to, and even if they have a great offer and can provide a lot of value, they just jump straight in with hey, this is what I offer. Do you want to sponsor me, more or less? Whereas I think that, this relationship building stage of just having that conversation first before you ever pitch, not only does it give you the chance to find out more about that sponsor, so when you do pitch, you have more information, but they're also going to be more willing to listen to what you have to say. So, what is kind of your process of getting in touch with people and chatting? I know you're very kind of communicative. You love talking to people, but what's kind of the thought process behind that? How do you kind of sit down and go, right, I'm going to open up a conversation with this person and see where it goes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've done your research and you understand that business to a point, and you know that they're kind of aligned with you. So whenever I'm then approaching a company to open a discussion, I go with genuine interest. I'm really, really interested in that company because I've invested some of my time researching them, understanding them. I've then looked at, I think I can help this company, and I get really excited by that. And that, I think, going with that sort of genuinity and that passion behind you, when you then start that conversation, it's far, far easier. And I just ask questions just like, what's your challenges? What are you struggling with at the moment? How are things going? And one of my partners that I secured this year, one of their challenges was that they create marketing material for various companies, but they absolutely have a love and passion for motorsport. And I didn't know that until I started talking to them. But their business and brand did quite align with me. So when we started having conversations about where they want to go and how they want to get involved in motorsport, it was such a great conversation. I was so like, oh my God, I can help you. This is awesome. And straight away you've got that great partnership together, and things just naturally grow. So that's kind of pretty much how I approach it, really. But Jess, it's been thanks to you and your book. It's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, and my kind of reasoning for writing the book was because I was seeing so many talented racing drivers who they were winning, they were doing great things on track, but they didn't have those business skills kind of in the background to kind of secure the sponsorship. So they were saying, well, I can't afford to race anymore. And that was heartbreaking to me, and it still is heartbreaking to me. So that's kind of, the reason for writing Get Paid to Race. And it's so nice to hear from people like you, Toby, and hearing those success stories. And, you're not the only one. And I'm really, really proud that, there's all of these people kind of within my motorsport family and within the racing mentor community who are finding success like this. And just before we kind of move on, maybe I will tell people a bit more about the podcast, but I just want to give a few kind of like tips on pitching and relationship building, because I think this is something so vital. And I think we actually talked about this on the podcast recently, is that one of the great ways to kind of get in touch with people is on LinkedIn. And it's such an underused tool. Like, we've both had great success with sponsorship on LinkedIn. And one thing that's really, really working for me at the moment, just as kind of an opener, is first off, be really, really genuine. But I also think like, a really simple opener that has no agenda, like you kind of talked about just then, Toby. But I've been finding lots of success with just asking, hey, what are you focusing on at the moment? Because it kind of gives people the chance to talk about themselves, but they can tell you about their business if they want to as well. So it doesn't sound like it's an opener ready for, a sales pitch. Obviously, because you're quite good at this, Toby, it comes quite naturally to you, but I know it doesn't come naturally to every driver out there. So there's like a quick tip for anyone who's kind of looking to start this relationship building kind of process, but doesn't really know how to do it.
Yeah, and the thing is, Jess, the advice that you've given, you've changed my life. I've managed to go to motorsport from not having any money to do it to understanding how I can help companies, which then helps me get paid to race. And I use motorsport to help those businesses achieve their own success. So I think, you're changing this perception that to get into motorsport, you've got to be rich. I think now that things are changing very quickly among the community, we've got so much success stories with other drivers, and it's such a super exciting time for us. And of course, the podcast has been a huge success as well. And we're getting, it's worth a listen.
Yeah. So anyone who kind of wants to get involved in this conversation, there's two ways that you can do this. On Facebook, we have the Racing Mentor sponsorship community, which is just a friendly place where you guys can come and ask questions. I'm in there. I'm posting resources. You can find out a bit more about kind of everything that's available to you to learn from. So most of the content that I share is free, but then there is also Get Paid to Race as well if you want to dive into a book. And the podcast you can find basically anywhere that you like to listen to your podcasts. And Toby and I are so open to suggestions of like topics to talk about, because it's created for racing drivers at all levels. So we're more than willing to kind of hear from people on what is it that you want to know. And we've covered all sorts of topics in the last, how long's it been, since February, I guess. We've covered everything from branding to pitching to the subject line that you should put in your pitches. So we've gone into quite a lot of detail there, haven't we, Toby? Yeah,
that's it. And it's every Tuesday, isn't it? Grab a brew, sit down and enjoy the listening, because it's well worth a little chat with Jess and I and how we cover these topics.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do see that there are a couple of like questions and comments under the live stream. So once we're done here, I'll dive into that. But if you do have any other questions or anything like that, you can find at Racing Mentor on pretty much every social channel. Or you can come and join the Racing Mentor sponsorship community on Facebook as well. So thank you, everyone. So I think we're kind of out of time now. So thank you so much for listening. I know this has been like a really kind of short overview of sponsorship, but hopefully it's kind of made some of you think about, the value that you're providing and how you're standing out as a racing driver, and also how you're building those relationships before you pitch as well. So that's all from us now. I'm going to hand back to Ian and Ben. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. It's been great to be here.
Thank you so much. Take care.